Hello, everybody. And I see Julie there.
Hello.
Nice to see your face. Everybody, is everybody hearing me? Yeah. Okay. Can everybody hear Julie?
Yes, here I am. Hi, everybody.
Great.
Good.
So Brendan should be highlighting, spotlighting the two of us here shortly. And then I won't have to try to look at everybody at the same time. I'm trying to match all your eyes and maintain eye contact. It's really difficult. So let me holler at Brendan and see if he's going to do that.
Now I see everyone.
I thought that was.
I'm so sorry.
Okay, here we got the help. Isn't it interesting that in the past, anybody with a mask that people wanted to shoot, and now anybody that doesn't have a mask, they want to shoot.
Oh dear.
This is bouncing around for me. Hold on.
Okay, so
Yeah, stop.
well, I see we have 51 people here already signed in, ready to go. So that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, once the workshop is over, though, we'll have to stop it on time due to getting everything wound up before the next section. So, so just to let you know, Julie, on that.
There we go.
Okay.
It wouldn't stop moving.
And could you have both of us up there
Should
for a
be
minute?
here.
Oh, okay. Because I'm still up
You
there.
should be there.
Yeah. Well. Yeah.
Add. Okay. There we go.
Okay. There we go. So I wanted to introduce Julie Charette Nunn, who's an old friend of the Fairy Congress. She's presented 8 times since 2002. We're keeping track. And she is also a friend in the herbal community. She's presented at some of my herb events in the past. And so we're crossing the realms here between, and it's interesting that a lot of people in the herbal community actually are also tuning in and working with the unseen realm. So herbalism, physical plants, and unseen world go hand in hand a lot in the herbal community, not by all means all. But so Julie Charette Nunn is one of those shamanic herbalists that crosses both of those. And she has a mystery school and a green witch school. She offers shamanic mentorships and apprenticeships. So she's been a very active part of our community here in the Pacific Northwest for many years. So thank you, Julie, for showing up for us.
Yeah, thank you, Skeeter. I'm just really glad to be here. And
let me, excuse me, I hate to break up, but I should say one more thing before you get rolling, is that if people have questions, if they would write them in the chat box, I'll be working on monitoring that so I can report to Julie at when she's ready for questions. So
yeah, and there might be time at the end if people, because I'm going to give you a couple of experiential things to do for us to do together. There might be some time for people to share some of what they received too. We'll see how that goes. I'm just really glad to be here. And I just have to say that being connected with the Fairy Congress has been really wonderful. And I've actually had some really good teaching participating in the Fairy Congress, and actually some classes and just some little spontaneous healing things happening during the time of the Fairy Congress that were pretty profound for me. And so I'm really grateful for this space. And last night, it was when we were in our small group sharing, I just felt such a sense of connection and love with everyone. And I feel very fortunate that we're gathering together in this way, especially during this time. So I am going to sing a song to call us into this space. And I'll just do it a couple of times, and you can join me if you know it. It's called the Grandmother Song, and it has very many variations, but this is a short variation of it. And I'll call our space in with the song. Then I'll do a little introduction of what I'm doing and what we're going to do in the class, and then I'll go for it. So anyway, here we go. I have my rattle, and I don't know if you can hear it, but it really helps me to gather the energy for myself. So here it is right here. I hear the voice of my grandmother's calling me. I hear the voice of my grandmother's song. She says, wake up, wake up. She says, wake up, listen, 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 listen. I hear the voice of my grandmother's calling me. I hear the voice of my grandmother's song. She says, wake up, wake up. She says, wake up, listen, 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 listen. I'll do it one more time. I hear the voice of my grandmother's calling me. I hear the voice of my grandmother's song. She says, wake up, wake up. She says, wake up, listen, 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 listen. Okay, I'm going to see if I can get on this other. There, now I can see some of your faces anyway. All right. So what I wanted to say was the reason I wanted to come here with you today is I wanted to share this practice that I've been doing with the plants for like over 25 years now. And it's so simple and it's so near to where we are. It's like, and we're going to do a little bit of it. I want to tell you a story about how I came to this, and then I'll give you an exercise, and then I'm going to share with you, after I share with you my story of becoming a shamanic herbalist, I want to talk about Rose, because Rose is quite a strong teacher for me, and a little bit about where I live here on the land in my garden, and working with the land and the elementals and the wild energies of the land here, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about. There's a special tree here on our land that I'm going to tell you about, and then going to do a little bit of something with that. And then my apple tree has called upon me to share at the end about working and doing some healing work for our world. And the apple tree specifically wanted me to talk to you about her in that way. And so about 25 years ago, I was a school teacher, and I worked with homeless children in Seattle. And I thought I was pretty content doing that. You know, it was my career. It was my job. It was hard, but I liked it. And I went to a conference and I met this woman named Eagle Song, and she was an herbalist. And I did her class at the Women of Wisdom conference, and she kind of kicked me through the doorway. I had no idea what was going to happen, but she started talking about the ancestors and her ancestry, and how she's the daughter of this person and the granddaughter of this person and the great-granddaughter of this person. And I started to cry, and that's all I remember from the class, actually, was this connection that I had. And so I took some classes from her, and I met Nettle. Stinging nettle, Urtica dioica. I met Nettle, And I was still a school teacher, and I used to take the nettle infusion to work with me because it was very supportive to me. And I would be drinking the nettle, I'd be teaching and everything. And where I was pretty content, I started looking out the window and I started going, I wonder what's growing out there. I wonder what's growing outside my classroom. I wonder what plants are right out there. And I had to pull my energy back in. I had a really hard time not taking myself outside. And the crows would come and sit on the fence outside my classroom and look in at me. And I'm like, what? What's going on? And so what I experienced was nettle was starting to change me. And the way I see it is nettle activated a cellular memory in me that I'm an herbalist. And I quit my job at the end of the school year. And that was 25 years ago. And I, never looked back. I mean, I started on this path and I started doing some different things with the plants. And actually during that time when I was a school teacher, I decided I was going to go on a little nature quest. So I went up to Camino Island, stay at my sister's cabin, and I had made up this plan of walking in the woods, and I was going to harvest some Oregon grapefruit. Well, I was pretty nervous about it, and I did that, and I walked into the forest, and there was a very large old cedar tree that had been burned out inside. And I could actually get my whole body up inside the trunk of the tree that was burned out. And I went and I stood inside the trunk and I just breathed. And then I stepped out and I looked on the ground, and on the ground was a little piece of charred wood. And I picked it up and I held it in my hand, and my hand started to burn. And I looked around me and the whole forest was on fire. And I realized that I had a vision of this cedar being burned. And I mean, this is pretty much at the beginning of my, before I had even done any shamanic training or anything. And so I was pretty discombobulated by all of this, but I was determined to harvest some Oregon grapefruit. And I did do that. And I harvested some and I put it in my satchel. I went back to my sister's house. And I was cutting up the root in the kitchen, and I heard this very loud, clear voice say, "I am a plant of protection for you." And I turned around because I thought there was going to be someone standing behind me. But of course, there was no one there except for me and Oregon grape. And that was the first time I heard the voices of the plants. And so I decided to do some training. I went to study with Susan Weed in New York, lived with her for a while, and that was pretty profound. And when I got back, I decided I needed some personal healing and sought out a shamanic practitioner, and she told me to do some shamanic training. And so I went to do the shamanic training, and that was it for me. I realized that this could be my home base for being an herbalist. And so I started teaching about herbs, and I started journeying. And I was working with these women, and I journeyed and asked my teacher, well, what should I do with these women? Do you have a suggestion? And she introduced me to a spirit teacher in the upper world who's a very, very old shamanic herbalist from the British Isles. And she said, here, do this. And I'm like, what? That's really odd. You want me to do that? Yes, do that. And so I thought, okay, sure, I'm game. And so I did that. And the experience was profound. It was phenomenal what the women experienced by doing this. And so what I'd like to do now is I'd like to give you a shamanic listening exercise is what I call it. And we're going to do a little bit of remote connection with the plant. And I'll explain the whole thing, and then I'll do a little rattling, and you can do that. We're going to do a very short thing, maybe about 5 minutes. And then, but we'll do it remotely here in the class, but it's something you can do. And I really urge you to do it outside with a plant where you live. Okay. So, and let's see, what do I want to say about that? Just, however you feel comfortable doing this. And because I have so much to share, and we don't have a lot of, we have an hour or so. And so if you want to share a little bit in the chat, if you have some questions about, but please share. One of the things that I've learned from doing shamanic journeying and shamanic training is the sharing really benefits everyone. It's like we're journeying for ourselves, but we're really journeying for everyone here. So I'll ask you to close your eyes, and I'm going to give you all the directions first so that I'm not talking while you're journeying. I'll ask you to close your eyes, and then I want you to imagine a plant that's near you, growing near you. Like I would say the first one that comes to your mind. And then imagine yourself standing near that plant. So you're standing before the plant, and just pay attention to your breath. Notice your breath. And then start to breathe as if you're breathing in the breath that the oxygen that plant is putting off. You're breathing in, you're breathing out, you're giving your breath to the plant. And you do that for 7 breaths. And then when you're done with the 7 breaths, you ask the plant, what have you for me? What have you for me? And then listen and see what the plant has for you, and be open, because it could be, I know we're all in the Fairy Congress, so we're kind of already experiencing some of these things, but I always tell people to really open your consciousness to it. Could be words, could be hearing, it could be seeing, it could be something crosses your mind, it could be a feeling, a sensation. So just pay attention to whatever is given. And then when you're complete, say thank you. And saying thank you is a way that we move in between the worlds with the plants when we do the breath. And then when we say thank you, we move back out. And let's see, what else do I want to say? I think that's it. Okay. And you don't have to have an intention, but if you have something in mind, that's great. But you don't have to have a specific intention for this, okay? So about 5 minutes, and I'm going to rattle for you. Okay, here we go.
Julie, your rattle sound isn't coming through. Are you muted or something? Do you know
No,
why?
I'm not. I wasn't expecting the rattle. I'm not expecting you to hear the rattle. I'm just doing it.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
Right.
so we're continue to do the exercise, and then I'm just rattling because I want to hold the space for you, but it doesn't come through in the Zoom. So. All right, we can go ahead and complete. I know if I look in the chat, then I block all of you, so I'm not going to do that. So I'll have to be patient with myself about that. Okay, so I just would love to know what people are. I'd love to know what people are experiencing with that. And what do you think, Skeeter? Can we do a few sharings now, or do you think it's best to wait till the end?
Oh, I think in the moment and sharing for this bit, and then later for the next bit. So I think in the moment is good. Could you hear
so
that?
it's okay. It's okay if a couple of people want to share.
Yeah.
Okay. Does anyone want to share about that?
They can just unmute themselves for the sharing. And yeah.
I asked. I have a new witch hazel, and I asked her for some help, and she just said, "I offer you calmness. I can offer you calmness."
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else?
Yeah, I have this little plant, and I've been on the road for a couple of years, and the message I got was, this is what it's like to be in one place. Like I can show you what it's like to just be in one place.
Oh, very nice. Thank you.
Sweet little.
Comforting.
Yeah.
Oh.
I went out to my garden where there was a beronia plant and breathed it, and it said, "We love you. We want." And then I said, what message do you? And it said, "We want you to have wonderful scent in your world, and thank you for planting us in your garden."
Oh, that's
I
really.
could share something. I'm Michelle. I visited the local, what I call twin sequoia. Two trunks come out of one root, and asked what you have for me. He showed me wind, like that casts the fire. The fires come, they throw the seeds, and I said, "What more do you have for me?" And he showed me that the electrical, all of the electricity that humans create irritate them, like hyperacusis. And when the seeds are cast, they affect the seeds like a birth defect in the DNA. So there's more, but the meditation ended, so I'm sure there's more to find out from the trees about that.
Yeah, and you can go out there and work with it some more. I think that's really, I do this in my classes like this remotely, but when I'm teaching, when I'm teaching my classes in person, we're outside with the doing this, and people do this, outside directly with the plants. So yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Can I share real quick?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Noelle. I had sagebrush come to me in my thoughts, and I felt the cold, icy wind on it, and then I felt the hot summer sun on it, and then I just felt a really strong sense of resiliency. And then it kind of opened up to the whole broad desert and just like a sense of clarity.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. I think we're going to move on now, but I really appreciate hearing your stories, and we can share more of that. If you want to share it in the chat, and we can share more at the end. And also, if you do this with the plants outside, we can share on the website too more. So, okay, I'm really want to talk to you about Rose. And so I'm getting my notes here a little bit. I get a little right-brained when I teach, and then I have to have my notes so I can remember what I wanted to say. So I've been working with Rose my whole life. And when I became an herbalist, then I started to utilize the rose for healing. And I would go to the Olympic Peninsula and gather wild rose blossoms in the spring and then the hips in the fall. And I'm going to try to get off this. For some reason, my mouth and my picture are off. And so it's kind of distracting for me. Okay, here we go. And so I would communicate with the rose in the ways that I've learned and harvest the rose. And there was one time when I was over, it's a place called Dungeness Spit near Squim. And there's like 6 acres of wild roses there. And I was harvesting the rose. And it's like, it seems like a regular time picking the rose. And all of a sudden, I feel like I moved out of the regular space I was in and in between the worlds. And it was this space opened up of love and beauty. And the rose was so powerful that she was like, pick me more. And I was just like, I had to pull myself away because I had to get the ferry back to Whidbey Island where I live. And that was pretty amazing. I mean, I just, that. And so then Tad and I, my husband and I, moved here to this place where I live, this farm, and discovered in the spring that there was over an acre of wild roses here on our land. And so there were the roses, but I decided I was still going to go to Squim, to Dungeness Spit, and gather the roses over there like I'd done for so many years. And because I had this craving for that feeling that I had, it was just like, oh, I gotta get back to my roses over there. And I went over there and I went to that place where I had had this intense experience. And the roses talked to me, but they didn't. What they said was, what are you doing here? You can pick a couple of roses and then go home and develop a relationship with the roses on your own land. And I just was heartbroken. But it was like my heart broke open that moment. And I realized that all the time that I was living and moving around and then becoming an herbalist and moving my plants from place to place, that I'd always gone somewhere to find something. And what I realized was, now I'm going to find it right in my own home. And one of the beautiful things about Rose is that as there weren't that many roses that year in our wetland, and I thought, well, maybe the deer are eating them. But as we gathered year after year, they became quite abundant. And so now they're just incredibly abundant all over our land. Let's see. There's this thing about Rose. I mean, I like to teach about Rose, and I have things I've written about Rose over and over. But one of the things that I learned about Rose has this mysterious quality. And she helps us to shift our perspective about healing. So, and this has happened time after time, where you can be feeling sick and feeling like, oh, I just feel terrible. And if you take some rose in to your body, all of a sudden you start feeling like, oh, I can get better. And Rose has done this over and over again. So I like to think of it as mysterious. I don't think of it in a scientific way, that there's something that Rose is bringing into our field that allows us to be fully present with who we are, so we can do what we need to do. And so I, right outside my house, there's a whole hedge of roses. And usually after we harvest the rose hips in the fall, they're kind of quiet. And I don't really talk to them until springtime when they start getting their leaves. They're just quiet, and I'm doing other things with the plants. But this past year in the winter, after we'd harvest the rose hips, the roses kept bringing messages over and over and over all through the winter, like just these really beautiful, amazing messages. And I think the roses sensed that something was going to happen because of the pandemic and then all the other things going on in our world. And then I actually had quite a strong health challenge, which the roses supported me so supremely through by continuing to give me messages about well-being and possibility. Okay. And now I'm going to look at the time here because I want to make sure. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to skip the exercise with Rose. Hang on just a minute. I have to ask my teacher about this because I don't know the answer. So hang on. Okay. She says we have to do the rose thing. Okay. So let me just get a little water here. Okay, so the exercise with Rose, and if you have a rose that you live with, you can imagine you're doing it with that. And again, once we're done here and you're out and about in your yard or somewhere outside, you can do this directly with the plants out there. And I have a photo of Rose, but I don't know if I can do the screen sharing thing. Is it difficult to do that, Skeeter?
It's not too difficult, but I think it's always risky to do anything you're not familiar with. So
Okay.
I would suggest that everybody can really vision Rose themselves.
Okay, that sounds good. And I can always share maybe on the website some photos later or something, just so you can get the idea. Okay, that sounds great. So Rose. And you can do this with any rose, of course. And so what I want you to do, I'm going to explain the exercise, and then I'm going to do some rattling, and you won't be able to hear it, but it really helps me to hold the space for you. And I'll hold my rattle up so you can see it or see that I'm doing that. And so what you're going to do is you're going to imagine yourself standing before the rose. And this time you are going to breathe 21 breaths with Rose, 21 breaths with Rose. And when you're complete with those breaths, you ask the rose, who am I? Who am I? And the same, you listen, see what Rose has to tell you about that. And when it's complete, you say, thank you. And I'll rattle a little bit and we can begin. Okay, here we go. Okay. All right, everyone. Perhaps we could do a little sharing again, just to hold the space for that. Would someone like to share? You can unmute yourself and.
I'd like to jump in with a quick share. My name is Pan. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, thank you so much. The connection with Rose exploded for me in a beautiful way. I've been working on this co-created art over here that I've been doing since the Fairy Congress and channeling. And I had made this heart in the center of this. This is a healing glyph. And it was originally a dagger with a heart at a rose at the hilt. And I had forgotten that I had changed the rose into a heart somewhere along the artistic license path. And it came back to me that it was a rose and that it's also a heart, and then heart opening. And then I saw that this pink aura that I created around it was rose energy. And so those 21 breaths I spent just really channeling the rose energy to this, from this. And it's very, very buzzing and alive for me in this pink color here. So I thank you very much for the wonderful guidance and blessing.
Yeah, thank you, Pan. Appreciate hearing that. Anyone else like to share?
I got, it was kind of interesting because, so they told me Queen Penelope. And I'm like, okay, queen of what? And I couldn't, like, they were trying to show me pictures, but there was like no way to, like, there was like pictures of like fluffy flowers in the spring, just things like just kind of random pictures. And finally, after, asking them like 3 or 4 times, queen of what? They were like, subtle healing. Like they didn't quite have the right word, but that was like the closest they could get. But it had something to do with nature and healing.
Julie, you were accidentally unmuted, so you'll have to unmute yourself there.
Okay, I just did that. I just noticed that. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Penelope. Queen Penelope, that's beautiful.
You're muted.
Oh, am I? It says I'm not muted.
I can hear you now. Anybody else out there?
I can totally hear.
Okay.
I can hear fine.
Okay, good. Oh dear.
Well, since I'm unmuted, I will share that I work with Rose some, and I had a great time being a big human cloud above big patches of roses, breathing on all of them instead of just like one. For one thing. And the rose at the end of it said, who are you? It said, you exist so that we can send you love and support, that I exist so that the rose can send me their essence and their fragrance. So it was interesting that I'm created for them in a sense.
Yeah, thank you. That's beautiful. Oh, yeah. Anyone else?
When I asked Rose, it said, who am I? You are a being of love, and your purpose is to grow this love. So that was nice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay.
For me, aloha. For me, I was out in my garden, and I haven't been taking good care of it lately because we're getting ready to move. And this morning I had gone out and I was going to bring some flowers. They're somewhere, but I was going to pick this orchid. And instead of picking the orchid flower, the whole orchid came off the plumeria tree. So I brought it in. And when I was trying to do the rose meditation, I found myself back in the garden, but not specifically with Rose. And I was apologizing that I was saying, I'm still yours. I'm still yours. Because I feel like I haven't been being a good caretaker lately. And it said, or I heard, or I felt that we were given hands to tend the garden, that people are, as opposed to other animals who do whatever they do, but we have certain gifts which may have turned out differently than the deva of humans expected that we would use our gifts, but that our gift of hands has to do with helping tend the garden.
Thank you. Thank you. It seems important somehow that you were guided to go out and connect with the plants. That perhaps Rose guided you to connect with your garden. Yeah. Thank you. Anyone else? Like one more, maybe? It's just so beautiful. Okay. All right.
May I?
Yes.
Hi, Ariel Rose.
Oh, hi, Ariel.
I brought, when I came here, each property I've gone to, I've planted a sterling silver rose. When my parents had their 25th wedding anniversary, my father bought my mother one, and that was my side of the yard. I tended the roses that were in my mother's garden. And so when I came here, I planted one here, and I planted some rose gardens, and that, but doing it with, and it's a sterling silver rose, and doing the exercise with it, and it's by the front door, and standing with it in my mind and talking to it and doing the exercise. And then I waited and waited, and it said, Queen of the Roses, Mother Goddess. And that is who you are.
How beautiful.
Thank you for your sharing.
You're welcome. So it's this beautiful thing that happens in connection with the plants like this is that it's so simple and very, happens very near where we live. And as I've developed this practice over the years, then I do this with all of my plants. And so not only do I have a connection, with my food that I grow by tending it, I also know what it has for me. And it takes time to develop, and it allows us, the way I see it is it expands our consciousness of the present moment. Like all of our energy is expanded so that when we're fully present in a more expanded way, we have this connection that's not just in the physical, but in all the other realms and into the subtle realms as well. And I just remember I worked with this little boy for a while because his mother was concerned he was going to be labeled as behavior disordered because he was quite odd. And she just wanted me to work with him. And he and I went to the garden, and we were going to harvest some salad for the garden. And we were going to do this breath with the plants. And then we were going to pick some salad. And he asked the collards, what have you for me? And the collards told him, we love to be food. And I always really appreciated that, his really young wisdom, that, that if we were present with everything in life like that, fully present, how beautiful it would be. And it's just so near to where we are. So I'm going to ask my teacher because I think we can go a little bit over the hour, but I notice there's quite a few comments in the chat, and I want to make sure that we share some of that. So I want to ask my teacher again what she thinks I should focus on. So hang on just a minute. Okay, so she wants me to talk to you about this special tree that we have here. And
Julie, let me make a comment here. You have an hour. This is an hour and a half period. So if you thought you had 10 minutes, you have 40 minutes yet.
Okay, I knew that. I just knew that I was saving time for questions and comments and thank you. And so I just wanted to make sure that we had time for that because you said that we had to go right at the end, at the hour and a half. So, okay, but thank you, Skeeter. Yeah. Okay, so I have, there's a tree on our land. It's a Douglas fir tree. And we have on the edge of our property, we have a row of Douglas fir trees. And the last tree in the row, we call it the power animal tree. And I discovered this about 15 years ago when I had broken my ankle and I was laying on the couch for a long time. And I kept looking at this tree and I kept seeing things in it. And finally I thought, well, maybe I'll ask the tree what's going on. And the tree said, I'm giving you a power animal. And I'm like, oh, and so I spent some time working with the tree on that. And so then when my apprentices came to work with me, I said, I've discovered that this tree on our land gives you power animals. And since then, I've discovered that the tree is connected with the lower world, which I think a lot of trees are, but this specific tree is very connected with it. And I've been doing this for about 10 years where I send people out to the power animal tree and they receive power animals. It happens every time. It's never failed to happen. And it's beautiful. And this tree is, what do I want to say? I had a student once that was trying to convince me that all trees were not wise or something. And I really disputed that fact because I felt like some plants are for us and some are not. And so if you don't have any connection with a tree or a plant, it may be that that tree or plant is not for you and to go seeking the ones that are. And so this tree is very generous, I would say magnanimous, and wants to share power animals with all of you. And so we're gonna do a little exercise here for it. And I'll give you the whole thing. And then I'm going to do some rattling and we'll do about 7 minutes. And I'll see if I can get a picture of this tree on the website because then you could do some more work with it. But let's see, how can I tell you about it so you can imagine it? So what I want you to do is we have, it's at the edge of our property and it's at the edge of this row of Douglas fir trees. And it's not one of the tallest trees, it's probably one of the shorter trees. And it has very long branches and some of the branches come down and touch the ground. So it has this connection with the ground. And often there'll be raven or other birds flying around it and landing in it. And so I'm going, when you I'm going to call upon you to close your eyes, and you're going to imagine that you're walking out to this power animal tree. And when you get so you can see the tree in its entirety, I want you to have the intention that an animal will come to your consciousness, the first one that comes to your mind. And then as soon as you receive that animal, I want you to breathe 7 breaths and allow the animal to enter your being for 7 breaths. And once you've done that, then I want you to just have a little hangout with the power animal, and see if it has something to share with you, like what does it have for you? What can it offer you? And then when I'm done with the rattling, I will call you back. I want you to make sure that you're fully present in your body, and then you can open your eyes and thank the tree and thank the animal, and we'll see what happens. Okay? Okay, here we go. Oh, and one of the things I wanted to share as you're going and doing this is it could be a power animal that you already have, or it could be a new one. So be open to all of that. Okay, you can come on back and open your eyes when you're ready. Okay. I would love to just have a couple of shares. Anyone?
I'm
Share.
Yes.
I'm Donnie, and my power animal was a puma, and I was really, I love the big cats, and but one of the messages was learn to be with giant cat energy. And then I saw myself playing with the cat because I have really good cat energy. But it's like, learn to be with this, like play with this, gentle with this, but there's power in power. So
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you.
So I envisioned a really large tree, maybe larger than your tree is in person. It was huge, and I started to get a little bit of like a snow leopard, which is what I usually have, but it like was a polar, it kind of like transformed into a polar bear. And then I kind of asked like, okay, what do you have for me? And it was like power. It's like, oh, okay. So that was new. It's lovely. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Anyone else? Okay.
So, can you hear me?
Yes.
I also got polar bear, and it was so interesting because it was under the aurora borealis, and watching the lights as it's walking towards the lights, and it told me it was very aware that it was leaving the earth plane. And so it's leaving the earth plane, but that it's not leaving us. It's not leaving our universe. It's just leaving how it is in its physical way. And it was also showing me that it's a wayfinder for people who are transitioning right now. And I know so many people who have transitioned, including today. And that it helps us to envision this aurora borealis for them to help them find their way.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Okay. So, Jennifer, did you wanna?
I did. I had journeyed many times with Jan to find a power animal and hadn't found one particularly, although he offered to connect me with a swan, which I thought was beautiful because I would like to have that graceful energy. And I have a beautiful lamp of a swan that, anyway, today in front of your tree, a wild boar came up through under the branches. And it wasn't a full grown one, maybe about, 50 pounds or so. And it came and it stood in front of me, and it had small tusks, not, the massive tusks. Gee, I have some tusks here. I should get those too. But anyway, it came up and it sat beside me, and it, kind of, that kind of snuffly sound an animal might make before they get comfortable. And it sat down next to me, and the sun was on its fur or bristliness, and I petted it, and it was kind of, and there were a couple of little insects kind of flying around it. No, it didn't particularly smell bad or anything. It was kind of dusty, but it sat there for a while. But because it was in the sun and it was hot, it got up and it sort of acknowledged me. And there's been a she-man character who's been associated, and we we had some talking about. Well, I think I'd keep that for later. But anyway, thank you. I asked him about it, and he said something like, "Well, did you want a swan? Because this really is more who you are. There's this tenacity. There's this tenacity and strength, and someone who feeds everyone. Who bravery and stands their ground." So I thought, yeah. Well, and we raised a wild boar briefly for a while.
Oh,
so
interesting. Okay, thank you. Thank you. All right.
Thank you. Thank your tree. Thank you for
You're welcome. I think we'll move on, and maybe we can share a little bit more at the end. It's beautiful. I usually, when I'm sitting at my desk here, I can see the tree from my desk, but I have my door shut. So I'm just sensing her out there, approving of everything. Like she's been really strong. In the night, I can even see her out the window. There's enough light in the valley to see her. So I want to share with you a little bit about my apple tree and something that happened for me related to what's going on in our world. And so we have a very large old Gravenstein apple tree here on our lands, right outside, pretty close to the porch that overlooks the valley. And it's very old, and it's just a vibrant tree, and it's very wise. And we have when I do classes, we sit underneath the tree. And when people come and work with me, they often connect with the tree. And this tree has taught me about self-love, specifically. It's been a very strong teacher of that for me. And after, the events of last week in our nation, then I start feeling a little bit helpless. Like, what can I do? I don't feel like there's anything I can do. And then I thought, well, maybe I could see if I could do some psychopomp, which is helping the spirits of the people that have passed on to move, when they've gotten stuck, to move completely into the other worlds. Maybe I can do that. So I thought I would journey and see if that would be appropriate. And my apple tree said, I'm going to help you. And so I thought I was going to do some psychopomp work, but what happened was the apple tree allowed me to do this type of, in shamanic practice, we call it shamanic extraction. But what it does is it helps to release things that are no longer needed, that don't belong, and things that are getting in the way of us moving forward. And she invited me to do that. And I've done it actually with a number of trees here on our land, but never with the apple tree. And she said, I want you to go to the capital, and I want to work with the energy there. And so I went there, and I actually took another teacher of mine because I was thought it might be pretty intense energy. And what I was told was there's so much energy in the Capitol building from centuries of negative experiences, so much that it's just really difficult for anything to go on forward. It's very hard. And so the apple said, I'm willing, let's do it. And when you do the shamanic extraction with the trees, what the trees do is they take what you're releasing and they neutralize it with the water in their being. There's water, and they neutralize the energy. So there's no harm being done to the tree. And so what I did was I did 21 breaths releasing all this energy, and then another 21 breaths calling in energy of, like a new kind of energy. And there was this beautiful, lush green energy that was enveloped in the Capitol. And I think that the message I've gotten is to do more of this work. And so I feel confident that I can do this. And so what I want to tell you about, because you can do this, I didn't want to do this in our class today because it's very strong healing. And I want to make sure there's enough space for when I do this with people, there's enough space for it, because it's can be pretty intense. But you can do this on your own if you feel called and you feel safe to do it. But you can choose the tree that you feel connected with and ask permission from the tree. And what you're doing is you're breathing 21 breaths, and you're allowing the tree to take everything that is not needed by you anymore or doesn't belong. And you don't have to know what that is. Just allow it. 21 breaths. And when the 21 are done, allow the tree to give you a gift for 21 more breaths. And it's very beautiful. And I think that it could be very beneficial for us right now. I mean, we have some time here to do some healing work for ourselves, to really move into this space of transformation that we're in. And I was listening to David Spangler this morning, and very strong time of shifting the energies. And I think that there's lots of things we can do. And so the plants have a lot for us. And because they're very near, the plants that grow right around us are very near to us. And the simple exercises I gave you could really help you shift. I know that I feel a great benefit from working with the plants in this way for so long. And the other thing I wanted to tell you before we complete this talking part, or my class part, is that this old practice that I've been learning, one of the things about it is that not only do you receive wisdom from the plants, but you actually then take in that wisdom when you consume them, or so if I was to want to offer myself some self-love, if I was wanting to increase the vibration of self-love within my being, when I make applesauce from the Gravenstein apple tree in my yard, I'm doing that. And that's so beautiful that we just, and it's this old way of living in connection with nature and with the plants. So I think we're going to complete this part, and then we'll see what kinds of questions there are. So thank you so much for being here with me, playing with me. Okay. So Skeeter, do we want to do some questions or more sharing?
What do we ask the tree after the 21 breaths?
Oh, you mean that in the shamanic extraction?
Yes.
For the last one, you don't ask anything. The whole time you're breathing, the 21 breaths you're releasing. And then you do another 21 to receive. So there isn't really a question with that exercise.
So Jan Kinsey said he would monitor the chat for this. Jan, do you see any questions you would like to bring forward at this time? Are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Hi, Julie. Please put one place you can put your questions is in the chat box, and I can kind of moderate that. But Does anybody have any questions for Julie about shamanic herbalism? How she works, how to work with trees?
Anyone want to share more, power animal plant connection?
I loved the breath part of it, with breathing with the plant. That was just beautiful. It was very, very powerful, and the connection and the flowing was just beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Julie, I've got a question, and this is a little bit about how you work with plants. Because we have you can do shamanic work with a plant, you can breathe with the plant, you can make a tincture, you can make a tea, you can make a flower essence, you can crawl into the tree. Are there any particular techniques that you use to find out how do you work with a plant?
So, that's a good question. So I like to suggest that people just begin with that really simple exercise of choosing a plant and breathing with a plant, and then start with one plant. And what I do with people I work with is, if we work over time, I invite people to choose a plant ally for a year. And it's a plant that you connect with, daily, often. You can breathe with a plant, you can spend time with it, you can watch it grow through all the seasons. And that is a really good way to open up to what pathway to do with the plants. I found that when people start doing these exercises with the plants, that the path opens up for them. It's amazing. It's like once the plants see that you're interested in this way, then they start opening up and giving you more information and showing you more. Yeah.
So, Julie, maybe I would share my power animal journey there. So I decided, I'm over here in Port Townsend, as you know, and I decided to just fly over to your place instead of visioning your tree. I said, well, I'll just fly over there. So I took the form of a bird, and I just swooped my way over there and swooped out of the sky and really got that tree right in my vision and hovered there for a bit, and then it was really connecting with the tree. And then I popped down and did the breath thing, and I said, well, what kind of power animal do you have for me? And it was like, well, I just flew here. I wonder if it's going to be a bird. And it was like, oh yeah, it's a bird. Okay, what kind of bird is it? And it's a blackbird. I said, well, maybe it's raven. Maybe it's crow. I said, well, ravens are bigger and like they have more charisma, and Hamlet, there's mention in Hamlet. So I said, but no, it was definitely crow. So I said, wow, I have a power animal as a crow. So it breathed. It wasn't me. I wasn't it. And it flew all over the place with me in it. It was just fabulous flight experience. And then after I came down again, I said, oh, it hit me like a ton of bricks. Oh, Julie is named the crow's daughter. What did I expect I was going to get?
Oh, thank you. Oh, that's beautiful. All right. Thank you, Skeeter. Does anyone else want to share?
And we've got a couple of questions in the chat box.
Okay.
Unless somebody has feel free to raise your hand and somehow get my attention. But one question is, do plants that are difficult to grow have a message for us?
Oh,
isn't that interesting?
Okay. Yeah, that's a really good question. So my sense of it is to ask the plant. Like what plant, can the person who asked the question say what plant it is? Is it?
So Pamela types.
Pamela would need to unmute herself. We're putting you on the spot, Pamela.
Hey, no problem. Sorry, I'm in the dark here. But yeah, I was just at the store buying some indoor plants, and this fern really was so beautiful, and I was drawn to it. I ended up buying it, but two people said, oh, they're so difficult to grow, and they were just like really discouraging me. So I just kind of wondered if you heard that about plants.
Well, is it difficult to grow outside? Is it where you're going to plant it outside?
I'm going to put it in my bathroom.
Okay. I would start communicating with the plant, see what the plant has to tell you about that.
Yeah, it just seemed like it was getting a bad rap from people. You know, it's like, oh, it's so beautiful. And they were just like, oh, no way. No way would I get that plant. So.
Yeah, I would communicate with it, because if you were drawn to that plant, then I think that it has something for you. And yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Then we have a question about roots, how to connect with them. And I think that brings in, are there times where you really connect in with a particular part of the plant? You know, the branches, the leaves, the flowers, the roots.
Yeah, that's a good question. So usually during the dark time of year is when I would connect with the roots and harvest roots. And there's an exercise you can do, and now is a really good time, actually, because of the winter time, unless you're in the southern hemisphere, of course. But you can go for a walk on the land, and as you're walking, see if you can sense the roots of all the plants, like the grass you're walking on, the plants in your garden, the trees. See if you could just sense the roots around you. And it's really quite simple and quite beautiful. And there's another exercise you can do with connecting to rootedness, is to actually do a little like a remote exercise and see if you can journey down the roots of a plant and see what's down there. And I know people that do that and actually end up in the lower world. But there's all kinds of magic down there. So during the cold time of year, I would say between the autumn equinox and the spring equinox, is the energy of the earth is like down right next to the earth and in the earth. And so it's very potent down there. And another thing you can do is when you're walking, see if you can feel gravity. And that's kind of fun to play with. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So we've got another question here about invasive species. What can you learn from invasive species?
I love talking about invasive plants. So my feeling is that plants are not invasive, and humans are so much more invasive than plants. And there's actually a couple of really good books about it. Maybe I'll try to remember to put it on the website, but there's a really good book about invasive plant medicine or something. But I really like it because this man talks about working with the plants that are people consider invasive. And so I have a little story to tell you about buttercup, because it's kind of like been a plant that people have had a problem with. They get pissed off at it a lot because it seems to take over everything. And there's a lot of it in my garden. I have a wild garden, and I wish I had time to tell you more about that. But anyway, I was out working with my raspberries, and there was a bunch of buttercup growing under the raspberries, and I was weeding it out, and I'm like, I'm really frustrated with this. Why is there so much buttercup? And then all of a sudden it dawned on me, oh, you could ask the buttercup. And, there's a thing about we teach what we most need to learn kind of thing. And so I asked the buttercup why she was so abundant in my garden. And she said that she brings compassion. And because I'm a teacher and I teach a lot of people, that I need a lot of compassion in the garden. And she said that if you weed some out, the compassion will still remain. But that's what she's there for. And I shifted my whole perspective about it. And I remember as a child, I really liked the buttercup flowers. And so it's kind of how it is. I mean, instead of thinking of the plants as invasive, like, well, what is this plant here for? How can I work with it? Like blackberry, the Himalayan blackberry actually is an earth healing plant. It takes over the land that's been disturbed and it holds the ground so that so there's not so much erosion. And so you can appreciate the blackberry and work with it and say, hey, I'm here too. I'm here taking care of the earth. So you can be over there, but I don't need you to take over all this land because I'm working with it too. So you can work in partnership instead of being angry at the plants, because they really are here to advise us. Yeah.
I see Jennifer has a question, and then we're kind of reaching the end of our time.
Okay.
Do you have a short question, Jennifer?
I'll keep it short. It's not so much a question, but a location. So here, continental plants tend to grow taller than island plants. And so continental plants then shade out things. Okay. So though you may not see a blackberry as invasive on the mainland because they are found on that continent, continental trees tend to grow quite a bit taller. A 40-foot plant from the Amazon that's really short in the Amazon is probably 10 feet, 20 feet higher than the average tropical, ulu tree. So one of the things, please, if you're going to talk about the virtues of a plant, compare what other plants that might be native to that environment might do the same thing to hold soil in a disturbed area. I mean, there are permaculture people here in Hawaii who get very enthusiastic about some of the legumes. But then they'll say, oh, though, it's good if you had a donkey because you have to cut this back all the time because it grows so quickly. Because what happens in an island environment is that the plants that have been here for a long time tend to be short, not outcompete, and get along. You'll find the herbs will grow in a cluster. And even if they're not natives, they have a deep taproot, so they're bringing the minerals up and they have virtues to offer. Where an invasive plant is something that just spreads itself everywhere and then chokes things out or covers everything and uses its leaves to suffocate the plant underneath it. So sure, there are non-native plants that aren't invasive, and there are invasive plants to that particular area.
Yeah, I really hear you, Jennifer.
That,
Yeah, I hear you. I really hear you. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. And I just wanted to let everyone know before we complete that if you want to visit my website, crowsdaughter.com, I've got a whole blog of writing, lots more writing about my practices and some stuff I'm doing. And if you have questions, we can chat more on the website, the Fairy Congress website, or you can send me an email. So I just am really thankful to be here with you all. And do we have time for me to close with a little song?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Ancient Mother, I hear you calling. Ancient Mother, I sing your song. Ancient Mother, I share your laughter. Ancient Mother, I taste your tears. Hola Mama, Wahasukola. Hola Mama, Wahasua. Hola Mama, Kawe ka ha ha ha. Hola Mama, Tate Kai. Thank you, everyone.
No,
Listening
thank
to
you.
you.
Thank you very much, Julie. You're just such a sweet shamanic herbalist, and everybody could unmute themselves right now. We could say our thanks and give a little applause or whatever. It's nice to express ourselves for Julie. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julie.
Julie.
Thank you.
You.
Everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you.